And now, on This Week in History with Paul Waite.
Hello, I'm Paul Waite, and this is On This Week in History. And welcome back to the second hour of my Saturday breakfast show. And I have my favourite chums with me today, the two wizards, fresh from the Forest of Glebe. In Lion's house, there is a portal to the Forest of Glebe, which is very good because it saves Callum from driving from Mr. Gersey. Mm-hmm. Drew, on the other hand, only has to come about 600 yards anyway.
I float here.
And your wizard coat, of course you do.
Out the top window.
Anyway, I'm a little bit sulky, Drew, because the first song we had back was Scar Tissue, which is one of my favourite
beast
songs of all time. But anyway, so on This Week in History, and we have a load of facts for you today. So it's funny, you get some weeks where nothing happens, and this week I could have gone for. It's only 3 days. This is only 3 days. Cool. This is Saturday, Friday, and Thursday on This Week in History. Wow. And I had so many. You can see I've already got something like 27 facts. So gonna have to really get on with it. 624. Muhammed, as in Muhammed that founded Islam. Right. So this is quite interesting. So it's actually, in the face of it, quite a new religion. So any idea when you think it came around? When the first Muhammad himself, so in 624, right. 624 AD, Muhammad's forces won a spectacular victory over the Meccan army. This is Meccan, yeah? Yeah. So, so obviously Islam was founded by a real person. So he's a prophet, a real, sort of like Jesus. So I think that Muslims think that Jesus is a prophet as well.
They do, yeah, but a less important one, yeah.
1609, Bermuda becomes a British colony. Very interesting. That used to be a player who used to play for West Ham called Clyde Best, who came from Bermuda. And of course, one of the reasons I like Bermuda, apart from it being beautiful, is there's a big rugby tournament there. All the old rugby players call the Rugby Classic. So that's quite exciting. 1781, William Herschel. He discovered Uranus.
He discovered Uranus.
I wondered what I was. I've thought about saying it, but and actually, Uranus is my governing planet for my star sign of Aquarius. Yep. So
fits with our level of humour.
Sorry, listen, I have to cough. That was a non-COVID cough because I was vaccinated at 3 p.m. at North Pelleton Rugby Club 2 Wednesdays ago, 2.5 weeks ago now. That's good. When Herschel first saw Uranus, he didn't realise it was a planet. He actually thought it was a comet. Do you know that?
Yeah, I have heard that, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So, where are we next? 1852. The Uncle Sam cartoon figure makes its debut.
Uncle Sam.
Right. The Uncle Sam one with the big hat and all that, with grey chops and
American icon.
That's interesting. Perhaps we've all got COVID in the studio. Are you not allowed to say that? Is that something we're not allowed to say?
I haven't coughed yet.
We'll self-isolate.
Oh, that's good then. 1865, Jefferson Davis. Do you know who he was?
Oh, God, yes, I do, but I don't.
Great name, don't you think?
Jefferson Davis.
Don't you wish? I wish I was called Jefferson. I'd like to, because Callum and Sam call me Jeff sometimes.
Yeah,
like Jeff, especially Sam.
Yeah.
Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederate States.
Right, that's it.
And he signed a bill authorising that slaves could become soldiers.
Oh, right.
So they press ganged all these slaves to fight for the Confederates.
Right.
There's a certain irony in that, isn't there? But 1867, the last French troops left Mexico.
All right.
So interesting this, you might think that Mexico would be ruled by the Spanish, but actually the last rulers were the French. So.
Oh,
really?
They don't speak French much in Mexico, do they?
They speak Spanish.
Well, they speak Spanish, exactly. But, say in Canada, you have like French-Canadian.
Yeah, definitely. In Quebec.
Yeah, so there we are. 1868, the Senate begins the impeachment trial of President Andrew Jackson. So I think he was the first president in US history to be impeached. And of course, President Trump has been impeached twice, and both times got away with it. And I think, I don't know, who cares about Americans' impeachment? They're just all full of rubbish anyway. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, like American football. What's the point?
Yeah.
Go and follow proper sport.
Kick it rather than throw it.
Sport played by men. They don't have to dress up like big ponces with big rests in between everything.
That's right.
Just an excuse to eat 10 gallons of popcorn and drink yourself stupid on
Go play rugby.
Yeah, exactly.
Root beer.
An interesting one. 1869, Arkansas. I like to call it Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas.
As it's spelt.
Passes anti-Ku Klux Klan laws.
That's nice of them.
Yeah. So I'm really impressed with myself. It is exactly 5 minutes. And I have actually done all of the ones, so that's good.
On This Week in History.
Don't you think I look really cuddly and handsome today? My new hairstyle.
Like a cuddly koala.
By Wizard Meep.
Wizard Meep Hair Salon.
Yeah.
Did you get your wand out and give it a
Anyway,
good spruce
we haven't
up?
got time for this. We've got so many things to do. So, in 1881, Alexander II of Russia was assassinated in St. Petersburg, and he was blown up.
Was he?
Yeah, that's quite amazing, isn't it?
I didn't know that.
So, of course, it then took, 36 years for Tsar Nicholas II to be also slaughtered with his family. One of the most disgraceful things of all time, but it gets me upset, so we'll stop. One of my favourite films of all time, one of my favourite historical things. In 1884, the Siege of Khartoum started. It lasted 10 months. So the Mad Mahdi, who had a horde of, obviously, Muslim North African troops, and Khartoum was held by General Gordon with quite a small number of British troops, but obviously with the locals there, and they held out for 10 months. And it's really quite a disgrace because Gordon was a bit outspoken, and so Parliament was sort of a bit reluctant to save him. So Lord Kitchener actually relieved Gordon in the end, but not before he got killed. 7 days after Gordon was murdered, after the Mahdi finally managed to break into Khartoum, the British came in and basically kicked their asses, and we ended up taking over again. But
gave them a thoroughly
Gordon, General Gordon, statue forever, played by Charlton Heston rather brilliantly. If you haven't seen the film, I've seen it about 100 times, and I'm not joking. So, because we all know I'm a bit weird. So, quite an interesting fact from my point of view. In 1894, G.L. Johnson, who interestingly was a Brit, because he wouldn't imagine this, he invented the first horse racing gate, starting stalls, you know. So, and of course, when I actually started watching horse racing, both on the flat. So, of course, I didn't use starting gates in National Hunt anyway, if you didn't know that. So it's only in the flat. But, so when I started, like the Derby was started like normal, you know, just with no stalls. So there's only been, I think, since about 1970 something, but obviously in America they've been doing it for a very long time. But it was actually a Brit that invented the starting stalls. Another quite interesting one, considering modern culture. In the same year, 1894, Coca-Cola was sold in bottles for the first time.
All right.
So so it's, you know, sort of modern culture, I suppose you'd call that. 1900, the British troops occupied Bloemfontein, which is the capital of the Orange Free State. So effectively, the centre of the Boer world. So obviously this is the second Boer War now. We've been fighting the Boers we covered them a bit recently. I think we've done about 4 weeks of British Boer sort of fighting. Great respect to you South Africans, really good rugby players, very strong men. And I actually have quite a lot of friends who are South African now, so fair play, respect and all that. Same year, 1900, the French working day was limited to 11 hours. So it's quite progressive, really, I suppose.
Yeah,
I mean, 11 hours is still a lot of hours, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, better than 12. Starting work, are you listening, Drew?
Yes.
You starting work at 8 o'clock and finishing at 7, please.
Happens some days.
It's good enough for the French, it's good enough for you. Yeah. I mean, what rights do monkeys have anyway? None in my world, that's what I say.
Poor monkeys.
1918. So who got a nice pick that made his ears burn?
Strigalovsky.
Trotsky.
Trotsky. That.
So in 1918, Leon Trotsky gained control of the Red Army.
Right.
So I was always a student of the Russian Revolution, so I was a great fan of the Mensheviks, who were much less extreme under the control of Kerensky, who originally became the government after Nicholas. And unfortunately, the more extreme faction, the Bolsheviks, ended up winning. 1921, country that I love for some reason, Mongolia, which was formerly known as Outer Mongolia, declared independence from China. Okay. So we have this vast country, only 3 million people live in Mongolia. Do you know that, Drew?
Whoa, only 3 million?
Yeah, Mongolia's like, I don't know,
Huge.
8 times bigger than Great Britain, I should think. I'm guessing now. I don't know for certain. 1923, so the last bunch to get through 9 here. Lee De Forest demonstrates his sound moving film pictures for the first time. So obviously, without Mr. Lee DeForest, you think he'd be a household name, wouldn't you?
You would, yeah.
You know, so I'm going to try and get one done here. 1925, couldn't believe this. Tennessee made it unlawful for evolution to be taught. And it's very interesting. This, for those of you who know, have you heard of an author called Harper Lee? Wrote a very famous book called To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good film. I think Gregory Peck plays the lawyer. So To Kill a Mockingbird, which is a Hollywood film, I think won an Oscar, is all about this. It's all about the fact that this teacher carried on teaching evolution. So this is just amazing. Less than 100 years ago, Tennessee actually stopped, teaching what is nothing other than the fact. So have you enjoyed that?
Bringing you the news of old on This Week in History with Paul Waite.
Welcome back. And for those of you who are watching just the podcast of On This Week in History, of course, don't welcome back at all, because I've just been talking continuously for 10 minutes. It's so wonderful living in this crazy media world, Drew. So
many variations.
We do so much media now, Drew, don't we?
We do. We love a bit of media.
And Drew and I are getting into documentaries now. We've done some really good stuff. So we're going to film a documentary on the legendary George Farwell called The Man of the Forest. So that's coming up very soon.
And that won't be the Forest of Glebe, that'll be the Forest of Dean.
The Forest of Dean in Gloucester. And then we're going to do a feature on John Joe Neal, my great friend, who is training the current favourite for the Grand National. Cloth Cap, 6-1 favourite. Very strong favourite. Won very easily last Saturday at Doncaster. Nice. Ridden by Tom Scudamore. Owned by Trevor Hemmings. Just to show, I'm showing off now, aren't I? Want to know what colours are as well? Quarters, green and yellow and white.
Wow, there we go.
Yeah, so what don't I know about horse racing? So, 1933, Goebbels becomes the Minister of Information and Propaganda in the Nazi government. Spreading discord and rubbish across Europe. 1935, interesting. Driving tests were introduced in the UK for the first time.
What year, sorry?
1935.
Okay.
Before that, you could just do what you wanted.
Just do what you do, yeah. Next, something that's quite important to me, but won't mean anything to these boys. In 1936, a horse called Golden Miller won his 5th consecutive Gold Cup. Golden Miller was owned by a very eccentric lady called Dorothy Paget, who was very wealthy, and literally she used to be awake in the night and go to sleep in the day. So she was a real crazy recluse. But she loved horse racing, so she owned some of the greatest horses of all time around there. Golden Miller won the Grand National in 1932, or 31, can't remember. And his favourite, having just won that. So at that time, he was the only horse in history to have won the Gold Cup and the Grand National. It's funny, this is quite often happens with horses, especially the really good ones. Some horses, so he basically won the Grand National and then basically decided he didn't like that anymore.
All right.
Grand National is obviously a very daunting circuit, especially in those days. The fences were about a foot bigger, obviously harsher, didn't have such... So anyway, so Golden Miller, probably one of the best 5 horses of all time, I would say. 1938, very interesting this, as well documented in The Sound of Music, Austria is annexed into Nazi Germany. Do you remember what that was called? The Anschluss.
All right, okay. I didn't know.
So that was what The Sound of Music is largely about, the Anschluss. Of course, Baron von Trapp refuses to take his commission in the German Navy and chooses to flee across the Alps with his family.
Much more fun. Frolic across the Alps.
Good old Baron von Trapp. Oh, I love you, man. 1940, Finland and Russia agree a ceasefire. It meant that I think that Finland lost an area which I think is called Karelia. So I'm not certain of this. So I'm just this is just launched the back of my mind. I think they had to give away Karelia, which was about 11% of their landmass, to the Russians to basically stop the Russians slaughtering them. 1943, the Nazis, a terrible story this. 1943, the Nazis liquidated the Krakow ghetto. Interesting, one of the great films of all time. If you haven't seen it, you really must do it to yourselves to watch it at least once. Schindler's List. Probably one of the greatest pieces of cinematography of all time. Ooh. I don't know if you're familiar of the scene where you have a group of Jewish people in black and white, and then everyone's in black and white apart from this little girl, and she's dressed in red. Do you know you watched it? And the thing that always gets me is the character played by Joseph Fiennes, where he just shoots people randomly from his room, with his rifle. Was just anyway. Oskar Schindler, fair play to him. He saved his workers by keeping them in the factory. He knew this was happening. So he basically, all his workers didn't get shot, didn't killed in this liquidation process. So whatever you think of Oskar Schindler, I mean, he did make a lot of money out of this, but he also, he is, of course, revered in Israel, and he is, I can't remember what the thing is, where the person put the stones down for him and all this, he's, one of the chosen few. Rather appropriately, in 1951, Israel demanded 6.2 million Deutschmarks as compensation from Germany for all the trouble they created in the war. And I think to this day, it's one of the things that causes a lot of bitterness, not just in Israel and with Jews, but with Greeks, for instance. The Greeks hold massive grudge and enmity towards the Germans for the massive damage that was done, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Germans are so unpopular in the EU.
I went to Crete last year, and I can testify to that, yeah.
Again, relevantly about Greece, 1964, Turkey threatened Cyprus with an armed attack. So again, we've talked about this before, so we are very fortunate to have many hundreds of Cypriot refugees come to Somerset, and they've made a massive contribution to our economy, I would say.
Some great restaurants in town.
We're very, very fortunate. And to be fair, maybe the best restaurant in Bridgewater is now owned by a Turk. I have to say, young man, your food is fantastic.
And one of the other best ones, the Tudor, owned by a Greek Cypriot.
1979, the European monetary system was established. The ECU was created, and this is obviously where, to some extent, the EU became a failed project. So before that, it was effectively the whole idea was countries working to mutual benefit to have better trading, etc. And then we started this whole process of federalism, I suppose you'd call it. And finally, in 2003, footprints of a 350,000-year-old hominid were found in Italy. So there we are. Taken a long time to do that, but I did get through a massive, I'm very pleased with myself for getting through 28 facts, whatever it's today. It's the most I've ever done.
Aspen Weight Radio Podcasts. Educate, entertain, enjoy.